The storm clouds had barely rolled in when the little boy burst through the gravel lot, breathless, trembling, and soaked in sweat and fear. His tiny legs stumbled as he ran, his small hands clutching the torn strap of his backpack, and his voice cracked as he shouted words that ripped through the quiet hum of engines and metal. He cried out to the bikers, those rough-looking giants who towered like mountains around their motorcycles, his voice echoing with desperation no child should ever know. "They're beating my mama," he screamed. And in that one shattered sentence, every leather-patched man turned, the world froze, and something dangerous awakened. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for the innocent, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps us bring more stories that matter. The boy, barely 7, stood trembling as the bikers rushed toward him. He wasn't used to being around strangers, much less intimidating men covered in tattoos and road dust, but the pain in his chest was stronger than fear. His name was Liam, and until today he had tried to pretend life was normal, pretend the shouting in the next room wasn't real, pretend the bruises on his mother's arms weren't growing darker. But when he saw her being thrown against the kitchen counter by the man who was supposed to love her, the world inside him cracked open. He had run because running was the only thing he could do. And as he faced these strangers now, he silently prayed they were the kind of men who would listen. Their leader, a broad-shouldered man named Hawk, lowered himself to meet the boy's eyes. Years of living hard had carved deep lines across Hawk's face, but nothing had hardened his heart. The moment he saw the tear-streaked cheeks, the dirt smeared on the boy's arms, and the horror trembling in every breath he took, something old and buried stirred within him, the memory of a childhood where no one came to help. Hawk didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. Behind Liam, the sky darkened with the promise of rain, but inside Hawk's chest, something darker gathered, a storm of its own. The bikers moved as one, engines roaring like thunder waking from sleep. Liam climbed into the sidecar of Hawk's bike, his small fingers gripping the cold metal, and Hawk sped off with a look that made even his men fall silent. The closer they got to Liam's home, the worse the boy shook. The streets looked familiar, but the shadows felt heavier. When they reached the small, run-down house at the end of the block, the sound of crashing and muffled shouting leaked through the thin walls. Liam squeezed his eyes shut as if his heart couldn't take hearing it again. Inside, his mother, Maria, was cornered by her boyfriend, a man who had slowly drained the life from her, first with soft manipulation, then with harsh hands. She had tried to protect her son for years, tried to keep the screaming behind closed doors so no one would judge her or pity her. But now she was on the floor, arms bruised, breath shaky, and she wasn't sure how much more she could endure. The door didn't just open, it exploded inward. Hawk's massive frame filled the doorway, and behind him stood the rest of the bikers, silent but radiating a fury that made the room shrink. The boyfriend froze, his hands still raised, but this time the fear in the room wasn't coming from Maria. Hawk stepped forward, and the man's bravado cracked like thin ice. The bikers didn't touch him, not at first. Hawk simply spoke in a low voice that carried more danger than a shout. He told the man that hurting a woman, especially in front of her child, was something they would never tolerate. And then, when the man swung his fist toward Hawk in blind panic, that was the moment their patience ended. The bikers pushed him out the door and onto the dirt, making sure he felt every ounce of the consequence he had earned. It wasn't chaos, it was controlled, precise justice, enough to make sure he would never walk back into this house again. When it was over, the bikers didn't celebrate. They didn't brag or smile. They simply stood watch as the storm outside finally broke, rain pouring down in sheets. Maria sat trembling on the couch, her breath uneven as she held Liam close. She didn't know these men, didn't know why they helped, but her tears flowed with the relief she had been waiting years to feel. Hawk knelt beside her, his voice softer now. He told her she wasn't alone anymore. He told Liam that he had done the bravest thing a child could ever do, run not away from danger, but toward hope. He offered them safety, support, and resources. Not charity, just compassion from people who knew what it felt like to be unseen. Over the next few days, the bikers helped Maria file charges, move her belongings, and settle into a safe place where she and Liam could breathe again. They fixed her broken door, repaired her yard, stocked her kitchen, and left behind a number she could call anytime, day or night. Liam found himself laughing again, the fear lifting slowly like fog at sunrise. Maria rediscovered her strength, piece by piece, finally believing she deserved better. Hawk visited them one last time before riding out. He looked at Liam with a quiet pride that only a man who had survived his own storms could understand. For Hawk, helping this little family was more than an act of kindness, it was healing an old wound inside himself. And as Liam wrapped his arms around Hawk in a sudden, tight hug, something unspoken passed between them, the promise that good people still existed in the world, even when life felt unbearably dark. From that day on, whenever Liam heard motorcycle engines in the distance, he didn't feel fear. He felt safe. He felt protected. And he felt the kind of hope that changes a child's life forever. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share the video. Your support helps us continue creating powerful stories that inspire and heal. Before you go, please comment below, every child deserves safety. And remember, sometimes the heroes who look the roughest are the ones with the gentlest souls.